When I say warrior princess and ancient China, the first thing that comes to your mind might be Mulan. But she was really just a literary figure, the subject of a ballad, a fictional character. And she wasn't even technically a princess. Princess Pingyang, on the other hand, was an actual historical person and a real warrior princess who won her title by crushing a tyrannical empire. In this episode, I'm going to tell you the story of Princess Pingyang and her army of righteous simps. By the way, this is a collab video with Xiran, but I won't tell you when Xiran's going to appear, so pay close attention or you will miss it. Princess Pingyang is actually just a title. Her personal name was not recorded in history, but we know that she was the third daughter of the Li family. Her father, Li Yuan, claimed to be a member of the prestigious Li family from Longxi. Some of their ancestors included illustrious figures such as the Han Dynasty flying general Li Guang, the Qin Dynasty fast rider General Li Xing, and even Lao Tzu, the author of Tao Te Ching. As for himself, he was a high-ranking general of the Sui dynasty. With this kind of pedigree, she could just coast through life without an ounce of worry. She's even got a man in uniform for a loving husband. The Sui Empire was in relative peace. The economy was doing well and food was in abundance. Her life was practically all set. Until this guy came along, Yang Guang, the son of former Emperor Yang Jian. He was a tyrant and the complete opposite of his father. He was obsessed with mega projects and wars. During his reign, he worked millions of his subjects to death, digging the Grand Canal and rebuilding the Great Wall. He had also sent millions of his people to death on his bungling attempt to invade Goguryeo, Korea. Rumors had it that he also ordered his father's assassination. This guy is a Hall of Famer among tyrannical emperors in Chinese history. After 2 disastrous attempts at invading Goguryeo, the people had had enough. Rather than dying in a foreign land, fighting a war they don't even believe in, they decided to rise up against their oppressors instead. So rebellions started to spring up all over the land like weeds. Thus ended the high-flying life of a certain young lady. But the situation was actually much worse than that. Her whole family was in real deep trouble. The tyrannical Yang Guang not only violently suppressed the rebellions, he even started to persecute his own generals who didn't do a good enough job suppressing the rebels. Her father had come under suspicion recently, and things aren't looking good for him. Then suddenly, she received a secret message from her dad. Apparently, the suspicion had turned into reality. Li Yuan had decided to rebel against the empire too. In the midst of this chaos, the emperor had decided to take a leisure cruise to the city of Jiangdu in eastern China. This is a great opportunity to escape from the capital, Chang'an. So Li Yuan instructed them to gather at their base in Taiyuan for their own safety. Her husband, Cai Sao, welcomed the message, and he wanted to support his father-in-law's rebellion. But if the two of them were to escape together, then they would make conspicuous targets. He can't possibly leave his wife alone, all by herself.
Just go already. I can handle myself. I'm a woman. Unlike you, it's easier for me to hide.
With her assurance, he finally left for Taiyuan. It was surprising to her that her soft-willed dad would actually launch a rebellion. So it was natural to suspect that her bold and ambitious brother, Li Siming, had something to do with this. Anyhow, the family is in crisis. She couldn't possibly just sit idly by in a cellar. She came up with a plan and ordered her sidekick to...
Ha ha! This is not an animated feature, miss. You don't get an animal sidekick. All you've got is me, your servant, Ma Sanbao.
Winning wars is not just about swinging swords and spears. Organization is key. Even though the empire was rampant with rebellion, the individual rebel groups were small and disorganized, which makes for easy pickings for the Sui army. So, she sold all her property and used Ma Sanbao as her agent to start funding some rebel groups from the shadows. Some of these rebel leaders were actually her dad's relatives and friends, so getting into contact with them was quite easy. Starting with a small group, she managed to persuade other small groups to join her. Then she kept the ball rolling until she eventually developed a large network of rebels. Most of these people probably had no idea what was happening. Until suddenly, one day they become strong enough to repel the assault of Imperial Sui army. And that's when she emerged from the shadows and took a leadership role.
Well, boys, say hello to your new sugar mommy.
With her as commander, the army shifted to an offensive approach, and she conquered the area around Chang'an and paved the way for a major offensive by her brother Li Siming. Li Yuan and Li Siming's army was held back by a major setback at the start of their campaign, but by now, they had recovered and become many times stronger. As they marched south with the morale of a victorious army, their spirits were lifted to the stratosphere as they rendezvoused with her army of 70,000. Her division was then officially called the Ladies' Army. With the Li family reunited, they launched their final assault on Chang'an, a pincer attack that tore through the imperial capital, and they easily conquered it. Not long after, Emperor Yang Guang was killed by his own officials who were fed up with his antics. And this clears the path for Li Yuan to establish his own dynasty, the Tang Dynasty, which eventually became the second golden age of China. Consequently, this also makes his daughter a princess. And this is how she became Princess Pingyang. The official history did not record any more stories of her in the battlefield. But according to legend and folk stories, that wasn't the end of her warrior princess career. This part is special. This story is not something you often hear in the Western version. With the establishment of a new dynasty, it did not mean that the chaos ended magically. The Li family still had to do a lot of cleanup work, defeating challengers to their new dynasty. In one occasion, Princess Pingyang was tasked to fortify a pass in the north. But then, out of nowhere, a wild rebel leader appeared. Liu Heita came with his massive army to take the pass. At the time, Pingyang only brought a small number of soldiers with her, so she was gravely outnumbered, and all she could do was to request for reinforcement. But even though she called for backup, their fastest cavalry could only arrive days later. With her enemy's overwhelming number, she definitely couldn't last that long. As she paced on the tower, trying to find her way out of this mess, suddenly something down in the field caught her eye. Millets!
Hey, I've got an idea.
On the next day, enemy scouts heard a lot of noises coming from Pingyang's fortress. There were more flags now, heaps of food were being cooked, and foul liquid was running down the side of the fortress. Horse urine, so much of it. A massive cavalry must have arrived to reinforce the princess, he thought. When this information reached Liu Heita, he hesitated to launch another attack. But then, sometime later, he smelled something fishy about this. Eventually, his suspicion was proven right when the real reinforcement arrived later. He was taken in by her ruse. She had fooled them into thinking that there were more people in the fortress by ordering her men to raise more flags and create more noises. But then, how would you explain the horse urine?
It worked! I knew it! Nobody gets to complain about my cooking anymore.
Once again, Princess Pingyang's bravery and resourcefulness saved the day. And apparently, she had also proven that it could be a folly to assume that a woman's natural station is in the kitchen. The pass she guarded was later named the Ladies' Pass. Sadly, the princess died young in 623. The cause was not recorded. Despite the protestation of the Ministry of Rites, her father gave her a grand military funeral and all the honor she deserved for her participation in the founding of the new dynasty. She was given the posthumous name of Zhao, and her complete title is Princess Zhao of Pingyang. Alright bros, hope you all enjoyed the story. By the way, my name is CJ and I would like to thank Xiran on behalf of the Cool History Bros. If you would like to take your Chinese history and culture with a truckload of sass, then be sure to check out Xiran's Twitter and YouTube, link in the description. Xiran's also got a book coming out next year, by the way. Iron Widow, a Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale reimagining of China's only female emperor, Wu Zetian, coming out on fall 2021 from Penguin Random House with Italian, French, Spanish, and German editions also to come. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and share. At Cool History Bros, we usually talk about the interconnected history of Asia and the rest of the world. So subscribe and nerd out with us if that's your jam. Until next time, stay cool, my bros.